Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
What does a healthy, balanced lifestyle consist of? How should you eat? What exercise should you be doing? How many hours of sleep do we really need? Does too much water flush away all your vitamins? Should it be high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb? The more research you do, the more confusing it gets, because there is so much information out there, and there are so many conflicting opinions. So how are we supposed to know? Stick around to explore the different approaches to health with us, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and let's try to figure out together what the heck being healthy really means. I am your host, Hazel Priscilla, and this is your weekly dose of Feed Me Honesty. Hello, truth seekers, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Feed Me Honesty. Although yoga has already been around for about 5,000 years, it is a practice that only recently became popular worldwide, and today I think it is safe to call it a trend. So much so that the 21st of June is now known as International Day of Yoga. What I think makes yoga such a valuable practice is the fact that it integrates physicality, mentality, and spirituality. Because when it comes to exercise, the focus tends to be solely on the physical body. And as we all know, and should remind ourselves of ever so often, we are so much more than our physical bodies. Although physical health is of course very important, Dr. Caroline Leaf goes as far as to say that 75 to 98% of physical, mental, and behavioral illnesses come from toxic thinking. Now, you may or may not agree with that statement, but there's no denying that there can be no true healing if some sort of balance is not achieved between the physical, mental, and spiritual realms. In studio today to shed more light on the topic, we have Tessa Custers, who you may remember from our Healthy Sexuality episode. Tessa, welcome back. It is always the greatest pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be back too.
Please tell us, when did you start doing yoga and what was it that drew you to the practice?
Oh, that's a long time ago. I started practicing yoga, I think 2007, around that time.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a lifetime.
It is a lifetime. It's almost like, it's 12 years now.
You're giving away your age.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No.
She looks 24, let me just tell you that.
And I started, I think I was around 25, 24. And I started here I started actually in South Africa. And I remember I was here because I just needed a break, and I was not doing very well.
Were you on holiday?
Yeah, holiday is a big word. It was more like I needed a break. I think it was that time. I started working after studying, and it was just a little bit too much, and I felt that I needed a change in life. And I always had a big love for South Africa, and I felt that I had to come back here. And I remember living at that time in Kayamandi and next to Stellenbosch, and I felt that I needed to do something. And I remember I was talking to my friend, and said it's either going to be surfing, I think, or yoga. So I needed...
Was it too cold to surf?
Yeah, maybe it was too cold to surf. And then when I was staying in Kayamandi, I found a yoga place in Stellenbosch, and I remember myself getting in the taxi in Kayamandi going to yoga. Yeah, to yoga. And I really had a very nice connection with my teacher there. And that was actually the start of my yoga journey, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. At what point did you then decide that you not only want to practice yoga, but that you also want to teach? And what did the training process entail?
I don't think so it was I think only a year and a half later I was back again in South Africa. And I was like, and I was figuring out what do I want to do, because actually I was here in South Africa to try to find work and to live here, but I didn't know how and what. And then I saw next to this previous studio in Stellenbosch, I also went to one in Tableview. And then she emailed, I think, her newsletter with saying that she's hosting a teacher training. And that's a month intensive. So that means 4 weeks,
Yes.
like 6 days a week
Training.
and then actually day 7 is also training because you have lots of homework and things to do. So it's basically a whole month intensive. It's like a 200-hour course, that's how they call it. And I remember like, oh, this might be very nice, but I thought like I'm only practicing for like a year and a half, so
Am I ready?
I'm not ready. So I had a nice chat with the teacher, and I remember that she asked me, because I asked her, so do you think I'm ready? She said like, what do you feel? So I think actually I'm ready. I'm not sure if I want to teach, but I want to actually really do this. And then I made my decision just to do it without knowing if I would like to teach or not, but just as a deepening of my own practice.
That's actually true, because when you teach, you actually teach yourself as well, hey? You learn more when you're teaching other people.
Yeah, actually you learn a lot. That's what they sometimes say. My students are my teachers.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
You write that your first yoga teacher, and you have to help me with the surname, is it John Vedapol? How do you say that? You didn't even know. Sorry, John. If I'm wrong, I'm really sorry. But you said that he didn't even have a name for the style of yoga he was teaching. It was just yoga. And I think that type of yoga is the yoga I enjoy the most too. Just doing whatever feels natural and comes to mind at the moment without labeling it. There are, however, a lot of different types of yoga out there. So can you name a few and explain to us what characterizes each style?
Yeah, I find it also sometimes a complex and a difficult one. And what I liked about John's classes, he had a very strong background, studied a lot in India. I think he started the first yoga studio in Johannesburg. And so he had a lot of knowledge and wisdom.
And he knew all the different styles probably. So
I think
you don't know.
he, in a way, was, I don't know.
You didn't care about style.
No, because he was yoga and he studied self-knowledge as well a lot. So that was very interwoven in his teaching. So sometimes we also had that, like it was, because yoga is not only physical practice. Yes. So what we often did as well, I think there was this Friday morning class, 45 minutes of practice, like physical practice. And then we had a 45-minute, not a lecture, but almost like a chat about the philosophy. And that was his self-knowledge, was his thing, and I was like flabbergasted, and like I was always amazed, like with the philosophy, because it's such a wide. I don't even know how to explain it. For me, that was the start. Where like, oh wow, there's so much out there,
especially after first doing the yoga. So you're already in that mindset, you're already calm, you're already like one with your body, and then talking about
and then actually that, because I remember I think was it called at that time his Studio Yoga Live, and he had the eye
capitalized,
or something, because that was his thing, because there's actually no I, there's no, we think we are this identity, but actually so that was the whole philosophy. So it's like, oh wow, this is so I never had that at school, and so for me it really added a different layer. And I think later on I started to find out there's different forms. So I started with Ashtanga Vinyasa, and it's a more, for me at that time, was more, it's a combination of physically and also mentally and emotionally, but it's quite an active practice.
So almost like cardio, or not really?
Yeah, but the difference is, and that's what they taught me quite quickly, is the breath. And I think that's also something we often forget, but I almost want to say if breath is not involved in a yoga practice, that's what they say during our teacher training, then you rather call it gymnastics.
And that's something that is quite difficult, I have to say. For me, when I practice yoga, I sometimes forget to breathe, and I'm like, okay, remind yourself to breathe, and then it's easier to go deeper into your stretch when you breathe out, or breathe out, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a different quality of your inhale and your exhalation. And with the Ashtanga Vinyasa, the nice idea and why it worked for me at that time is you really combine your movements to your breath.
Okay.
So it becomes almost like a moving meditation.
Yes.
And
while breaking a sweat.
Yeah, I'm not the most sweaty person. Some people,
but you get a good workout from this type of yoga.
You can definitely get a good workout.
Build some muscle and stuff.
And the great thing, what I find about yoga, is you not only building muscles, but you're also stretching muscles.
Yeah.
So you have that combination of stretch and building up strength, and that's I find a big difference with a lot of sports.
Yeah, because after you practice any sport, you have to do your stretching afterwards, but everyone is too lazy to do that. While with yoga, you don't have to stretch afterwards because you were stretching during.
Definitely, and it's more balanced.
Yes.
I think that the whole practice is developed and designed to really work on the whole body, which is amazing, I think, yeah.
And then other styles?
I think in South Africa, what I see is quite
People
popular.
like that one.
Is that one, and also the Bikram, the hot yoga.
Okay.
Which means that you practice your yoga in a heated room.
I heard that's quite difficult.
For me, it is.
Even mentally, hey? Just like sticking with it, although you're so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think it depends. There's different philosophies about it as well, or different opinions, I must maybe say. I think for certain people, it's very nice and very good, especially when you're a little bit stiffer, that kind of thing. The heated room makes it much more easy and to move and to stretch.
And for some people who don't sweat easily like you like have that added element because, when you sweat, you get rid of toxins. So that's a good thing.
True.
But some people really struggle to break a sweat.
Yeah. Well, it's not my favorite style, I must admit, but that's a personal preference.
Okay.
And that's mostly because I like my heart rate to be low. And for me, like in this heated room is like, whoa.
Too much.
They say it would eventually
you would get used to it, yeah.
But I've never sat through with that because I think I found, if I can continue to another style, one of my personal preferences is yin yoga. And yin yoga is the complete opposite of that. You can almost say, if you look at the yin and the yang is the more masculine, and masculine is the more, it's dynamic,
powerful,
it's movement, it's muscular, and yin is very much about stillness, about surrender, and also about your yin tissues, which is not your muscles. So it's more your tendons, your fascia, your bones even. And to work on those tissues, you hold your stretches for longer.
For longer, yeah.
So you can go up to 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, but like normally in a class, what I do is like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the level of the students as well. And then you really want to still breathe, but you want to let go of all your muscular tension.
Okay.
And that's a whole different practice that sometimes is much more challenging mentally.
Yes, that can be very uncomfortable as well, hey? Just sitting there with your thoughts and then having so much time to think about how uncomfortable this position is or how stiff you are.
And then like to work on, because for me, it's a very feeling practice. So it really helps you to feel into your body, into sensations. And while doing that, you actually... you get away in a way of like being focused on your thoughts.
Yes.
And you become almost like an observer. So it's very mindful. It's also meditation in a very different way. So you really be still and you sit with what is and you feel what's going on, and that can be very different.
Yeah.
It's comfortable. Often what I see, a lot of resistance can come up in this practice as well, and that's what I love about it, like to really also help and guide people and also myself to stick and be with the resistance.
Yes.
Like to not move when you feel resistance.
Because we normally run away from it. Whenever we feel uncomfortable or something doesn't feel right, we always run. Yeah.
And if you look at the theory behind it and you look at your sympathetic and parasympathetic, so your stress and your relaxed system in your nervous system, you really want the run is like a stress reaction, and you actually really want to go into relaxation to really see, resistance is coming up. What is actually happening? And is there something that the resistance wants to tell me or show me? And with that, it also becomes a much more, I don't know, maybe you can call it spiritual, or I would say a much more aware and conscious practice.
Yes. Do you also think maybe for older people who, can't do such powerful exercises and moves, it's also a better option for them? Can be,
yeah. You can also, I think, I always believe that it's about balance, so yin and yang, but I would say, well, it depends. It's very difficult to say that, but you also the yang, and because Ashtanga Vinyasa is quite, I find can be very intense, but you also have slow flow, for example, is also a form that's you're still moving and you still use your muscles, and it can be dynamic, but in a much softer and slower way. And I think combining that with yin is like super nice, because yin, especially growing older, it works on your fascia connective tissue, but also on your tendons and your bones.
Yes.
And actually it's sometimes seems a bit contradictory, but it's actually building strength.
It's building,
Yeah, in your bones and in your tendons.
And you can almost feel it. I've done 1 or 2 of your classes, and I could feel it's helping me in some way.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and it's almost, I don't know how to say that. I think it's very personal as well, what it does. And for some people, yin, I always like my mom as an example, of myself actually. Like when I was doing my Ashtanga Vinyasa, and I remember my first yin-yang class, so that's a combination, when we had to do it in the yin, and I'm like, I can't.
Couldn't do it, yeah.
No, I couldn't stay still.
Yeah.
I wanted to move. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, come, what's next? What's next?
Yes.
And over the years, I started to see, actually it happened that at a certain point, I couldn't do any yang or power, and my body just didn't have any power. And then there was a yin class, and then I started doing yin, and it's like, oh.
It just felt right.
I can actually relax and it was such a, and emotional, it's also can be a very emotional practice, but that's a whole maybe different story, but yeah.
Okay, so in your bio, moving along, in your bio, it says that you sometimes use silence, sometimes touch, sometimes a little verbal encouragement, and always mirroring. How do you know or decide which approach to take and when?
It's a good question. I work very intuitively, so it's very hard to say I'm going to do this and this now. It's more that, okay, when I start a class, I tune in with my own energy body, I would almost say, and the energy of the room and the energy of the people. And that's how I almost decide what kind of class we're going to do. Sometimes I ask the people I actually always ask if there's any physical injuries or physical issues that they struggle with. Sometimes I'm asked them if they have any wishes. So then there's always a theme of an intention of the class. And then I walk around when people are in the pose and I'm helping them. And it's almost impossible for me to say how do I decide that, but it's when I tune in with somebody, I think it's on a more unconscious level in a way. I can feel if I just want to put my hand somewhere, because sometimes I just see in the body, okay, that's where they hold tension, or I feel that they hold tension in a certain part of their body. And sometimes I can feel okay, I put my hand there, and then I can feel, I ask them to breathe into that part and breathe out, and then I can feel that they sometimes relax. Sometimes I need to use words to have them move more into relaxation or more understanding of what's going on. And I think that mirroring is almost, just being myself and embody what I do and what I want to share. I think that's how I would say it. That's almost working as a mirror itself.
Do you think it helps you that that you were on the other side, so you were once the student or in the class, so now you know what you would have wanted someone to do or did for you, or what your teachers did for you, and then you use that in your teaching as well?
Definitely, yeah. I'm a strong believer, I don't know is that a word, but a strong believer of embodied teaching. So that's how I experience other teachers as well. If someone doesn't embody, so it's more words or a method, I can't really tap into it. I can't really feel into it. And then it becomes for me much more superficial practice, which is okay.
Some people prefer that.
Yeah, and that's also, it's again personal preference. But my preference is to go a bit deeper, and then I need a teacher that has gone there, and that can be emotionally, can be mentally, can be physically or energetically, that has gone to those depths in a way. Yeah, that's a little bit abstract to explain, but
it makes sense.
So I would say yes. That's why I think it's very important as a teacher that you keep on practicing. So that's what I also...
And still have your teachers who you look up to.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, recently you've also started to include live music and healing sounds, which I think is a really awesome touch, to your yin yoga classes. Please talk to us a little bit more about that.
It kind of happened that I met my current boyfriend, who is a musician and is an awesome guitarist.
Perfect match.
Perfect match. And somehow I think, we actually just, because I liked his guitar guitar music. And then when we were in Holland, I remember him asking him to just in Shavasana at the end to play some of his music. And people were very enthusiastic about it. And then when we were back in South Africa, we like, okay, maybe we should combine it more. And we came up with, why don't we do yin yoga and live music and healing sounds? Because David, my boyfriend, he's also very interested in sound healing. And he has the singing bowls, and we had the Koshi chimes, which I find the most amazing things. And we said, like, just give it a try. And so we organized like a workshop with my yin yoga and his music. And why I think that music is a super nice add-on is that sometimes music goes to places in your body where you can't reach with your asanas, the postures you do, and the vibrations and the sounds can really like reach and go through, almost move through blockages in your body where you actually with yourself, maybe with your breath or with the posture itself can't come. And I think that's a super beautiful add-on of sound.
It also for me helps me to get out of my head, because sometimes it's hard to quiet your mind, but when you're focusing on the music, it becomes so easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that for you the one downside to yoga is the individuality thereof. Why do you consider this a downside, and explain to us why you are so enthusiastic about acro or partner yoga?
So at a certain point, like doing yoga, you're always doing your own mat, and you really get in touch with yourself and like aware and conscious about what's going on inside of yourself, and that's beautiful. But at a certain point, I'm like, okay, but in real life, when I step out of my mat, out of the studio, I come back in real life, and real life is all about relationships with everyone you meet, even with the cashier at a till, or like just. It's all about relationships. And for me, like finding that peace and that silence and that connection with yourself on your own mat, how do you actually bring that with you, or do you keep that connection with yourself when you meet someone else?
Yeah, and when there are other energies in the room and other moods and other personalities.
Because for me, that's where
I think that's the hardest for everyone.
Yeah. So for me, then I came across acro, partner yoga, with my teacher Dike in Holland. And I find it just the most amazing practice, because now you really start to become aware, okay, what actually happens when I connect with another body, with another soul, with another human being. And it's a very playful practice to start creating awareness on that.
And even learning how to trust other people. I know you did this one practice with us where you have to lean on the other person, but you don't trust them to hold you up, or you're too scared you're going to be too heavy, and they're too scared they're not doing the right thing and you're uncomfortable. So you're always thinking about the other person and never about yourself. So like you said, you would endure feeling uncomfortable only not to hurt the other person's feelings. So you'd rather not say move up a little bit or move up a little bit. You'd rather stay in that uncomfortable position than just opening your mouth or just slightly moving your body.
I think it's a beautiful way, because you use the body. I believe that the body has so much wisdom in it and actually communicates before our before our minds in a way communicate. And then you can, I just love to watch people like we do a simple practice.
I can imagine how funny it looks from the outside.
No, you really, you see what bodies do and then what people do, and how difficult sometimes, like you said, your example, you find the other person in a way more important than yourself.
Than you,
Some other people are very...
Find themselves more important.
And that comes up. And there's no wrong or right, but it's just getting like, oh, this is
finding
actually...
the balance between being equally important.
Yeah, and getting an insight in your patterns, because that's what you do in daily life often as well. And you can use that practice as well, like to start to learn how do you actually communicate, and you have boundaries maybe, and do you actually say that out loud, or what happens inside of you when you feel, oh, there's actually a boundary, I actually don't really like it here, but do you dare to say that? Or so you're using body and body language to get insights in your patterns, relationship patterns. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, because it keeps it light and playful.
Yes.
And it can also go quite deep, and that's what I love.
I can't actually believe that we already ran out of time. It's so crazy. It feels like we just started. But anyway, if you are interested in experiencing one of Tessa's unique classes firsthand, you can follow Chase Tess on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Tessa, are there any upcoming classes that you can tease our listeners with?
Since this is not a live broadcast, I think the best thing to do is to go to my Facebook account. That's always the most accurate and up to date. So it's Shares Tess. It's a little bit French. My name
Shares Tess.
Yeah.
So CHEZTES with a space between the two.
Yeah, and I think it's on Facebook.nl behind it, but I'm not completely sure.
But if you type in search, you'll find it.
You will find it, and that has the most accurate, updated events. That's the best thing to do. So you're very welcome. So please come and join to experience.
And if that doesn't already sound good enough, Tessa is also qualified in giving the best Thai massages imaginable. So be sure to hunt her down on all social media platforms. Tessa, thank you so much for your time and your insight. We hope to be hearing from you again soon.
Yes, thank you. It was lovely to be here.
I would also like to thank our production manager, Pieter Matheiser, and our engineer behind the glass, Alex Mayberg. Tune in next week when we talk to cancer survivor Megan Randall about her journey. Have a balanced week and remember to be kind to yourself so that you can be kind to others too. Feed Me Honesty is a South African lifestyle podcast hosted by Hazel Priscilla and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.